How are you doing, man?
Man, I can't complain. Just trying to survive through the crisis. You know how it is.
Yes, it is. I'm calling it the Chronicles of Corona. Chronicles of Corona. Like everybody needs to be taking, having a diary. Everyone needs to be, just kind of because this is unprecedented. And I think what we're gonna see, no one knows. I know everyone has everyone's a prophet or a son of a prophet. And it has a prediction of how long this is gonna last and when we're gonna get back to normal. I've heard everywhere between we'll be back in, now people are saying May, June, all the way to some people, 18 months from now. We're just going to stay in this, so where are you at with that whole prognoc, prognostication or what, what are your thoughts
I'm
on
just
it?
I'm just admitting that there's a lot of uncertainty. Certainly, I think it'll take through April, and then from there, we just have to kind of pay attention and see what's going on, see if we were able to flatten the curve, so to speak. But it's just hard to tell. And the truth is, I don't think anybody knows for sure, and that's why this is so interesting and it's so intertwined with politics. I think it's the perfect conversation to be having.
Yeah, no, I really do think that this is good. And when we talk about the idea of politics, there's no better person. I think you, more than any person that I know, Justin, comes with both a biblical and balanced approach to addressing this idea of politics, addressing this idea of everything that, we're addressing. And so I really appreciate your work and your ministry and what you've been doing and being able to live out truly what you're saying, the and campaign, and so I really do just appreciate you.
Well, you've been a blessing to the AND campaign as well, brother. We appreciate you and your church.
Amen. And so we're here today with Justin Giboney, founder. Are you like CEO, executive director? Like, what are you like?
President, executive
President,
director.
founder, president, man of God, ultimate G, OG, Justin Giboney. We are here with him today. Every day I am on at 11 a.m. to 11:30, kind of helping us to keep our Chronicles of Corona. That hasn't been what we've named it, but it is kind of my internal name of what we're doing, and it's really trying to help specifically the Blueprint family come on and just get a chance for us to journey through this. And so my commitment is that we want to continue to do this, as long as this is going on, as long as we have kind of a shut in that we're in. I just want to get on and just kind of help the Blueprint fam, kind of walk through this. And so I'm trying to come up with people, experts in the field, people who spend their time thinking and engaging in the different areas. And Justin Giboney is definitely one of them. Um, People, and so usually I take about the first 5 minutes, Justin, just to kind of let people jump on and go. A lot of people come back and listen to it. So, just for at the beginning, just can you give everyone a little background about the AND campaign, who you are, what you guys do, and just a little bit about that?
I'd be happy to, man. So I am an ordained minister, but I'm also an attorney by trade, and I've been doing political strategy and campaign management for about a decade. And in doing that, I noticed that a lot of my friends who are running for office or folks who are running their campaign, they felt that in order to run and be a politician or really be in politics, they kind of had to choose between their compassion and their conviction.
Hmm.
Right. On one end, if you wanted to run as a Republican, a lot of my friends were feeling like, man, I can't be as compassionate as I feel the
Just
gospel
for
calls
at
me
the
to be.
beginning, just can you?
My friends who are running.
Sorry.
And then, no problem. And then when it came on the other side, when they were running as a progressive or a Democrat, they felt like they had to surrender some of their convictions, whether it be on the sexual ethic, abortion, and things of that nature. And so as I heard more and more of that, and I saw how that worked, I just thought it was wrong because if we go to Ephesians 4:15, we see that the gospel is about speaking the truth in love. And so we can't come into any aspect of our lives without love and truth, without justice and moral order, without compassion and conviction. But unfortunately, our political landscape today seems to separate those two, almost splitting the gospel. And so what the AND campaign was coming to say was that we wanted to create a framework for Christians to engage politics with their compassion and their conviction, focusing on justice and moral order instead of choosing one or the other. That's really what the AND campaign is about. So we've created that framework, and they're just trying to push it out to as many Christians as possible.
Yeah. How hard has it been for you personally to try to maintain that tension? Because it seems like even in a time where we're obviously in a worldwide pandemic, it seems like people are still positioning themselves from a political vantage point, and not necessarily. And, when I say people, I'm not even talking about the politicians. I'm talking about just believers in Christ. How
Yes.
hard is it for you to maintain a healthy tension between that, you personally?
It can be difficult. It's gotten better over the years as I myself kind of internalized that gospel-centered framework. And as you mentioned today, even with something going on as crucial as this corona crisis is, people are so caught up in partisanship that it's hard to separate themselves. But I really think what helped me and why it got easier is I became okay with critiquing my own party and my own ideological tribe.
Yeah.
Right? So if I go into a conversation, I don't go into that conversation trying to defend the Democratic Party.
Hello. Hi, what's up, man? I think I'm losing
I've
you.
been honestly plenty of things. So and say on that side, I absolutely happily work together to do something better. Can you hear me now?
Yes, but I think there's a lag now that's
I
going
can hear
on.
you. Okay.
Okay, good. Go ahead and continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. So I was just saying, I think one of the big things that helped me kind of separate myself from the party is not putting my identity in my political party. I see political parties and ideological tribes as just tools to do what God would have us do in the civic square. So whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't matter to me. Are you being a Christian first? And that's really the question that we should be asking as Christians, and not really be as worried about parties. Although I think participating in parties has a practical aspect to it.
That's good. You guys in the comment box, if you guys can put in whether or not you guys are getting a lag or a drag, please let us know, because sometimes I get it, but it's not coming that way on Facebook. So just put it in the comments whether or not that is, so we can try to make any adjustments. Justin Giboney, just really founder, president of the AND campaign, a man that I look up to and respect, especially in that. Justin, I would like for you to talk to, as we talk today, talk to the person like me. Like growing up, like I did not vote, and like I missed many different elections because I was just kind of like, I just didn't trust it. I didn't trust like anything was going to change, or really was not even, like, it was just too politicized. I can't get a straight answer from anyone. And so a lot of times, and even today, even to this day, I'm a nonpartisan. And what I mean by that is that there's been times that I voted Republican, and there's been times that I voted Democrat, and there's even been times that literally, like now that I've been in it, that on a ticket that I would vote for some Republican and some Democrat in the same, in the same time. And so, so I guess I'm not like, I don't claim either one of, the two. So when we think about like people who are not, like those who are trying to put their identity in Christ first, and I'm not saying that is meaning you can't be both and, but how would you go about like encouraging believers to engage in that, in this, especially with like COVID-19, in the midst of this? How would you encourage us to push forward in this season, especially with the political race coming up, and all that taking place?
One thing that I would always advise is not to just focus on national politics. And a lot of times, politics seems daunting and just something that we can't wrap our heads around because we go to the national first, and everybody just talks about national politics. The truth of the matter is, though, state and local politics often have more of a direct impact on you, and especially when you're talking about local politics, they're not really partisan. So the fact that you don't feel comfortable being in a party, I think is okay, especially if you start to focus on some of the local things that really affect your next door neighbor, literally affect your next door neighbor. One of the issues that we've been talking a lot about is the housing crisis, the low-income housing crisis in Atlanta and really all over the country. That's an issue that should in no way be partisan, but everybody in Atlanta, everybody in other big cities should be concerned about it, because very soon we end up with these big cities where all the jobs and services are, but there's no poor people there. So the poor people are moved out to places where they can't get the jobs, where they can't get the services, and it really creates a bad situation. But if we're just focused on partisanship, if we're just focused on national politics, then we miss that whole thing. And so I really emphasize to focus on national or on local politics too, because you can get some wins there a lot easier than you could probably get some wins on the national level.
What are some ways, like without trying to engage, like with senators and mayors and like public officials, that someone can get engaged, like as you said, on a local level?
Yeah, so one thing you can do is just go to the meeting. So you could go to your school board meeting just to find out what's going on, what's on the agenda. You could go to your local city council meeting or county meeting. That's a way to really be informed and just to get a feel for how politics moves in your city. It's a big way to do it. But also, I mean, the AND campaign has helped people with that. As I mentioned, we have something called City Roots ATL now that we're working on the issue of the housing crisis. And so if you're really interested in getting involved in local politics, you can go to cityrootsaTL.com and learn how to get involved on doing something that's really going to have an impact on the legacy of Atlanta and Atlanta for decades to come.
Yeah, that's really good. And I appreciate you doing this. Now let's get in a little bit about the idea of the COVID-19, and just people addressing this. Obviously, there's a lot of different things that are floating around about stimulus packages and all the different things that have taken place. I think I've read a lot of different things, a lot of different scenarios. Everyone has a different opinion, concerning that. And we don't have to do a deep dive in that. But what are some ways, when you talk about engaging in the public square, has COVID-19 kind of impacted us today?
Oh, it's had a huge impact. I mean, elections have been pushed back. We've seen some of our politicians actually catch COVID, and then all the orders that we're getting, all the mandates that we're getting from government means that COVID, whatever's going with COVID-19, is directly connected to politics, because the politicians are the ones right now who are making most of the major decisions about how society will interact. I mean, so we're basically, a lot of places on lockdown for maybe even another month or so. We really don't know. All that is coming from a political point of view. And so the number one thing I would tell people to do is pay attention, be informed, make sure that you go to your city council website or something like that to actually see what the mandate says, right? What is considered an essential organization or institution that is allowed to be open. Make sure that you're following the rules that have been laid out. A lot of the places where we see trouble, and we even, from my understanding, had a pastor arrested in Tampa, Florida, for not following the directives that were set out by the government. That is not okay. We need to follow this to make sure that we flatten this curve out. And so the first thing I would say is stay informed. But everything that's going on right now is uniquely connected to politics and the decisions that politicians are making on not just on a federal level, but on a state and local level.
So that's one of the things. And so for me, what that does is that produces just naturally a distrust that, like, are they really doing this for my well-being or whatever they're doing? Or are they doing this because of a fear of or desire to get reelected and those types of things? And so how, as believers, can we begin to differentiate between the two, especially when it's really hard to go to the news, because news is like, whether you're CNN or Fox, is so biased and so bent towards one side or the other. I mean, where can we, like, does the AND campaign or this, like, where can we get just kind of the facts without it being, driven one way or slanted one way or the other?
The World Health Organization website, it's WHO. The World Health Organization, you can kind of Google that, is a good place to get just the statistics and the facts on what's going on, right? And you can get that without like any type of partisan bent. But I think that the truth of the matter is, whether we trust our politicians right now or not, if they give a directive, if they put an order out, you have to follow it, right? So even if you don't know whether we should completely trust them, I have questions about some of the stuff myself. We do need to follow those orders. So first and foremost, we need to be supportive and follow those orders. And I think that, again, for numbers and stuff like that, the World Health Organization is going to be helpful. But when they tell you to lock down, when they tell you not to go where this is not a time.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, and then, and the Bible tells us that we need to obey our governing authorities, whether we agree or disagree with them. We need to obey and submit to our governing authorities. It also tells us to pray for our governing authorities, and so again, whether we agree or disagree, the Bible calls us to both pray for wisdom, pray for them as they are making decisions that are oftentimes are not going to be decisions that we would make, or decisions that others would make, but we need to pray and we need to submit to that, and that's kind of why, as for us as a church, we are always wanting to stay compliant to whatever our governing officials are. Now, obviously, there's a difference, and there's members at Blueprint Church in a variety of different places. Can you explain a little bit about kind of the shut in? So, like, for instance, the governor came on and he said for those who are medically fragile, that they need to stay in. But then our mayor, Mayor Bottom, she came in and said, no, Atlanta is shut in, And so how do we do that for those, especially for our church that are living in a variety of different cities and zip codes? How does that shut in policy work, for us and applied?
So this is where kind of federalism comes in. So the federal government, has even said that we should be kind of on watch. Right? That doesn't mean a state couldn't say more. So a state can't go against what the federal government said, but it can always do a little more in this kind of situation. So if the president says, I want you guys on lockdown until April 1st, the governor in this situation can say, okay, that's fine. I want to go a little further and do it till April 15th. And that's kind of what you see going on at the state and local level. So we had Governor Kemp come out and he said, for those who are older, those who are at high risk, I want you to stay off the street. I want the schools closed, and so on. Well, Mayor Bottoms didn't necessarily go against that, but what she said is, I'm going to go a step further, and I'm going to close down these restaurants and everything except essential places. Those are going to be shut down in the city of Atlanta. Not going necessarily against each other, but she's going a step further. Now, if he were to go a step further and say, I want everything shut down except the essential places, she couldn't come back and say, no, I'm going to open up the essential places, right? She doesn't have that power because the state is going to have more power, and whatever rule it puts down is going to supersede what something on a local level would do.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what's going on with that back and forth.
So, so like what's happening is, so like, as I know it, for what I understand, is that the president has basically said, we need to maintain a social distancing policy all the way through April. But then our governor has said for those medically fragile, they're shut in. But then our mayor has said there's a essentials only shut in policy. And so that's kind of what you mean by the federal going down to even the specific local.
They've gone a little bit, at least for Atlanta.
Yeah.
At each level, they've done a little bit more. Now, if you live, I think what Net has also done, the social distancing and had a shutdown kind of. What you want to do is, if you live in a city, and these are things we need to know, and some people don't know this. So everybody in Georgia lives in a county. You should know what county you live in. Go to that county website and see what directives have been put out there. It should be pretty clear on the website. But not everybody lives in a city, right? So some people live in Fulton County and they live in Atlanta. Some people live in unincorporated Fulton County. You wouldn't have a city to go to. You would just want to go to your county and see what your county is saying. Those are very important things that a lot of people don't know. So again, everybody lives in a county. Go to your county website and see what directives they put out. But if you live in a city, go to the city website, and that's kind of probably going to be more complete on what they want you to do as far as social distancing, what's considered essential, and so on.
So
important things.
So how does it work between if I live in a county but work in a city? Like, whose rules do I have to obey, in a sense? So, like, for say, I live in unincorporated DeKalb or, DeKalb County, but I work in the city of Atlanta. How does that work?
So, when you're at home, you would follow what your county says. If you were to go to work, or if you were to judge whether you should go to work or not, that should be based on the city in which you work.
Okay. So. Because, and again, I'm just looking outside on the streets, and it don't look like all these. We got a lot of essential folk out there on the streets right now, because it don't. I mean, it is less, but it don't. we ain't got that many essential people out there. So I guess my question is like, what are the implications? What are the implications for the people that are out there that are non-essential but are still out on the streets driving and things?
That's a good question. I mean, the thing is, what's the teeth? In a way, they're asking for good faith. So they could fine you. They could possibly arrest you. I don't think they want to do that. I think they want people to do it on their own. So generally, not a lot's going to happen, but you could get fined and possibly put in jail. Now, they probably don't want to put you in jail because they don't want a whole lot of people in jail right now, especially if the virus started to transmit. But you can get fined. I think generally they're asking for good faith from people and saying, hey, man, just be a good citizen and follow the rules. That doesn't mean that so if you owned a restaurant and your city said you weren't essential or that you should be shut down at a certain time and you didn't, well, then you could certainly receive fines and things of that nature. But generally, they're depending on people to just act in good faith and act as good citizens.
All right, so I'm here with Justin Giboney. He is the founder of the AND campaign, and he is the current president of it. A man I've respected. He brings both a biblical imbalance. Anything that I need to know about politics or any of those things, this is my man. This is where I come to. He is with the AND campaign, and you can go to the andcampaign.org for more information about what they're doing. I want to open it up for some questions or comments that you guys may have for Justin. We got about 8 to 10 more minutes with him, just to open it up. So what are some questions that you guys have? That you have around him. And while we're waiting for questions, Justin, like what are some of the things that they could find on the AND campaign's website right now?
So one of the things that we're launching tomorrow, which is actually going to be, I think, pretty important, and it kind of mixes politics and just the church, is a lot of smaller churches right now are really struggling. So churches that have older congregations are just small to begin with or struggling to begin with, really are hurting because a lot of people don't give online, and so they're not getting any money in. And so I talked to a lot of churches that are saying we might not make it through this crisis because we're not having any income come in, and so we may end up having to shut our doors. One of the things that people can pay attention to, and one of the things we'll be launching, is a COVID-19 church relief fund, and so we've teamed up with the National Christian Foundation. We've teamed up with Mission Day and some other folks to actually create a fund to help some of these smaller churches. But also we have the Churches Helping Churches Challenge, where we're asking larger churches that are maybe in a better financial situation to look and help out some of the smaller churches who may be at risk of not making it through this. Yeah. One of the things that connects with this is the CARES Act. And so our federal government passed the CARES Act, which is relief legislation. Churches do qualify under the Small Business Administration to get loans which can be forgiven later on. The problem with this is it may take a month or months to actually get that funding out to churches that may really need it and can't survive that whole time. So we think it's important, and we're going to launch this tomorrow to help some of these churches get through this moment. Barna's actually coming out with a study, I think today, that says tens of thousands of pastors don't think that their churches are going to make it through this crisis. Yeah. Also, about a quarter of churches are going to have to let people go and take a whole bunch of other measures to make it through. Yeah. So what you'll see on this website once we launch it tomorrow, so it's not up today, it'll be up tomorrow, is information about the CARES Act. So the CARES Act, it'll talk about how it affects churches, how it affects individuals, and that's where you hear about the $1,200, the one-time payment of $1,200, also the expansion of unemployment, things of that nature. All that'll be up on this website, which will be churchrelief.org.
Yeah, so that's very helpful. And I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I'm doing what I do. I work with a lot of pastors across the country, and yeah, we're seeing it across the board. People all the way from 40% to 60 to 70% of their income going because they were not prepared for this. And so I appreciate you doing that. We got some people online. What's up, Ricky, Kimberly, Laura? What's up? Hope all is well. Holly Johnson basically says this: Justin, do you think that the outbreak could inspire voter suppression? If so, how could Christians proactively respond to this possibility?
A lot of people are worried about that. A lot of people are worried that based on when the election is held and how it's held, that it could, discourage people or make it harder for people to vote. And so Democrats especially are kind of asking to consider actually an all mail-in vote to where everybody could kind of make it easier for people to mail in their votes, things of that nature. I think Senator Klobuchar actually created some legislation in that regard. I don't see that passing, but I think we all just have to be vigilant. I think we have to be very vigilant on the local, state, and federal level to see how folks are going to deal with this issue. Again, like I said before, a lot of municipalities and also some states have pushed back elections to deal with the crisis. So only time it's going to tell. I think Christians just have to speak up, and when you hear something or if there's news that comes out, just spread the word. Make sure as many people know when something's been changed and how it's been changed. And it's just hard to say, just to give a general directive, because on a state, local, county level, it all depends on what that municipality or that state government does. But be vigilant and kind of read the newspaper and stay informed.
Yeah, that's good. So, again, I'm here with Justin Giboney, president, founder of the AND Campaign. Any questions about engaging the public square, please let him know. You can also go to the andcampaign.org, where he's going to be launching a new initiative tomorrow that I think would be, it's helpful for churches, other churches, our friends go to, sister churches all across the country that we have. Justin, when it comes to like the school, that's one of the things our families are dealing with on a lot of bases. Like, what happens? I mean, the governor, like, how far out are they genuinely projecting out? Do you know that right now we know up until April 27th that the governor has shut down schools in Georgia? When will we know whether or not we're going back to school, or is that something that you would even know?
Again, it's going to be hard to tell. It's going to depend on this curve and how quickly we can flatten the curve. I think it was yesterday the president extended what he was calling for social distancing and all that, extended it to April 30th. I wouldn't be surprised if most states and municipalities really do say we're not coming back for this school year. I mean, that just really looks like where it's headed. The school year usually is going to end in May anyway. It doesn't look like they're going to take a chance and put school back in before that time. That would be my guess, that you're not going to see a whole lot of kids going back to school this year.
Yeah. No, that's kind of where we're at, because even when the president, he was saying April 30th, but then he was saying the economy, like his prediction, and we know that he has been more aggressive in his predictions. He says we should be back up in June. So like he said April 30th, but he says we should be up and running back in June. And I'm just based upon kind of the history, he's been more aggressive. So if he being aggressive, says that we should be back up in June, then that's, I think we need to prepare for that. Also, the CDC has already, put on back in March 15th, basically saying for the next 2 months to May 15th, they're discouraging gatherings, of 50 or more. And I think they even come back now, to the idea of 10, or less. And so it's going to be hard to gather in schools and different things, different arenas in this way. So I just really think that it's really going to be important for us to kind of hone in, in that as we are like preparing for the shutdowns for schools and in those different areas. What, last minute, Justin, what is some advice that you would give to us as we are trying to decrease the spread of corona, but we're trying to increase our ability to be neighborly, and you mentioned this idea of being neighborly. What are some ways or some things that you would just encourage our people?
Yeah, I would say just be hopeful. Reach out to friends. Reach out to friends that may not have a lot of family or people around them, just to check on them. I mean, being by yourself has a huge impact, and there's a lot of people that are just really stressed out. Rent is due tomorrow for a lot of people, and so just make sure you call people. And thankfully, in a lot of locations, they're stopping all evictions, but that doesn't mean that people still aren't stressed out about it, because they know at some point they're going to have to pay that stuff back. So I would just reach out to people. Again, I would keep an eye out for this Churches Helping Churches Challenge that the AND Campaign, along with several other groups, is coming out with tomorrow. It will give you an opportunity to help other churches in your city. I mean, there is going to be some government assistance. We don't know how long that's going to take. But the truth of the matter is, it's the church's responsibility to take care of our brothers and sisters. And so we really need to take that seriously. And I would say that's the number one thing that we can do to help folks along with making calls and following the rules, not making up our own rules, or whether we just trust the government right now or not. It's not a time to break the rules. Let's just do our best to help each other out.
Amen. Last question, Justin, and this is Roman Hammer basically says this: how should we view the church taking government assistance? Does this potentially open the door for losing our freedoms in the long term? Final question, and then we'll leave.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And as I've talked to people about our initiative, that's been brought up. I think it's a decision every church has to make. When it comes to individuals taking assistance, I don't think that's a big deal because it's your tax money anyway. It's kind of coming back to you. As far as a church, though, it's a decision you can make. But from a First Amendment perspective, it should not compromise religious freedom. And in fact, there were a lot of church organizations or faith organizations that fought for churches to be included to receive this kind of help. And they did so and try to make sure that it would not affect our First Amendment rights, freedom, religious freedom or anything like that. So I don't think that should be a big worry. There are a lot of people who've been keeping an eye on that, and Christian organizations wouldn't have fought for it if they thought it would come back and hurt us from being able to worship.
Thank you, man. Once again, Justin, we are with Justin Giboney, founder and president of the AND Campaign. You can go to the ANDcampaign.org, see some of these churches, helping churches initiatives, some other initiatives that he has going. It's a helpful website, helpful information, blueprint. This is a man that I trust, and the stuff that they put out is biblical and it's balanced. And I know at Blueprint we have both Republicans and Democrats, and so that I really believe that this will be helpful to give us a Christian perspective on how we can engage in some of this public platform. Justin, I really appreciate the time that you've given us, man. We love you, and man, just stay safe. Stay safe in this the COVID chronicles, the COVID crisis, whatever we call it.
That's right, man. Love you as well, man. Thank you so much for the opportunities you give the AND Campaign and myself, brother. Stay up. I'll be in touch.
All right, man. God bless. See you guys later, and I hope all is well. Thanks, Justin.